I'm loving that shirt. We got to get a focus because we like that. Yes,
we like the shirt.
Yes,
for black and white.
Thank you.
Of course, this is Sister Deborah, and it's so good to see both of you. And you're in Tanzania. Is it Tanzania or Tanzania?
Tanzania.
Tanzania. The accent is Tanzania.
Tanzania. Okay.
Yep.
And what city are you in?
Dar es Salaam.
Dar es Salaam. Okay. We haven't started yet. I'm just kind of trying to get a little bit. So I want you to meet Brenda. And Brenda is, yes. So Brenda.
Oh, that ain't important. Just jump right into it as we have this signal. All that ain't important. It no matter who I am.
well, it kind of. So, and listen, thank you so much again for hooking us up with Laurel, because I was in Jamaica and then I went there and Brenda was there, and that's who we ended up kind of going up to Akampong. And Laurel was very helpful with us with that. So, okay. So, but she's right about that. Let's get this signal going. So, please introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your background. This is Kwabena and Abena James of Merita Technologies, and we're so happy to have you with us here today. And if you would just introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your background for us.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Grace James, better known as Abena Santoa. And I'm originally from Jamaica, born and raised, and spent some time in the US. I am maternally one of 2 daughters from my mom, and 8 brothers via my father, and wow. The mother of 2 beautiful feminine souls, and one has now given us a granddaughter.
Right.
Been with my soul partner for over 30 years, and we've worked together in our technology business. I'm the managing director, CEO of our technology business. We lived in the US and Canada for some time, and now our home is in Kenya. However, we're currently, because of limited traveling that's going on, we're currently in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Over to you.
My name is
Thank
Kwabena.
you.
My name is Kwabena. I'm from Jamaica also. Grew up in Toronto. Similar kind of background. We've been all over. I'm a computer programmer. I do software development. And we have 2 beautiful children and a granddaughter. So again, myself and the Empress have been together for many years, and it's really great to meet you both.
What part of Jamaica are each of you from?
Spanish Town.
Yes, I come true. Come true. You have to excuse me. I should first say I attended Tredegar Park All Age for a small moment. And then on to St. Catherine Primary for 3 years. From there, some go at Diego for 1 year.
No way!
In the mid-side, confirmed at St. Jago de la Vega, St. James Cathedral.
Serious.
I come along street my granny used to live for.
What? Oh my goodness. That's his neck of the woods. Serious. Ex-Jagoites.
Yes, ma'am. Just 1 year. Then I went off to Bishop Gibson. But I was blessed with 5 years in Spanish Town of the 7 years that I spent on the island.
Oh wow.
Yep, 7 to 13. I cut my teeth. Good. Real good. All right, now go back now the shadows now.
And Abena?
Yes, ma'am.
Where's your family? Where are you from and your family from in Jamaica?
Okay, actually the same. Yeah, predominantly from St. Catherine, just outside of Spanish Town. And I grew up with, I think, 10 houses down from where his family home is.
Clear.
Before we came about, our families went to the same church. And just all within the same town and outskirts. Yeah, so I'm Spanish Town, born and raised. Yeah.
Oh, wow, nice. Okay.
I love this is like our second episode of Black Working Love.
It is.
I've got to put it that way because it's power couple moves.
We love the power couple. Yesterday we interviewed Go Gay Africa, Isaac and Mary. It was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. And it's and honestly, at some point we have to get the two of you and the two of them on a group set. I mean, it was really amazing because they're trying to, based on all of these things now, take their thing more online too. So at this point, we have to connect because it was a really tremendous session yesterday. But so, this is, we're doing this because every year we have a remembrance tribute to the ancestors. We have our tribute to the ancestors. We honor those who perished during the passage. And of course, this year we couldn't gather collectively as we normally had, so we did it virtually. So that's what this is all about. So we're really happy to have you here. But we ask you, what are your thoughts about the importance of remembering ancestors? And who are some of your personal ancestors or ancestors that are important to you? And in what ways do you honor them?
Okay. And I made my notes so that I would stay on point because I know we have a short time. So, okay, my personal understanding of our ancestors, it starts from understanding the life and death cycle and I would say the African understanding of what life and death is. And it's generally embedded in our cultural-wide importance of the elders, importance of transitioning. We have rituals that we do when our elders transition, and there are various things that is looked at and factored in as a way of communication with them. So from Jamaica and even us coming to Africa, to different countries in Africa, some things are common. And so we, again, when they pass, some rituals are done. When we dream, we consider that's them talking. We sometimes look at creatures or the appearance or behavior of some animals or creatures and connect that to appearance of the ancestors. So we are aware from, how we were raised in Jamaica that those that have passed on are important to our current life. And so we find ways of acknowledging their existence and their contribution to us. And so it is very important for us to remember them. It's very important to also pass on stories and wisdom from them to our children and our grandchildren. So just to answer you, it's extremely important to remember them in different ways and pass on that information.
So to remember, to take the words apart, it's to put back together. So this concept of putting back together goes back a long way to our most ancient of ancestors, Osir or Osiris, and it is from that sense that we get the concept of remembering the ancestors or putting them back together. Like Osiris was cut in pieces, and his wife Aset put him back together. there is something for the continuation of life that has to do with remembering. So we are the embodiment of our ancestors. We are them in a physical form. And we are also them in terms of their responses to whatever they experienced. And by remembering them, by incorporating them into our lives, what we're doing is we're continuing on a journey in which humankind descends into flesh. It has a human experience, and then it moves on to another realm. And it is said in the African context that our ancestors are closer to God. They're in the spiritual world. And by incorporating them into our lives, what we're doing is we're getting a channel to the Almighty in which we can beckon the Almighty for our requests, for which we can connect to the world, the spiritual world, the divine world. So to us, remembering the ancestors has to do with a continuation of the journey, not starting over again, not considering yourself as just arbitrarily popping up in space and time, but actually amplifying whatever works that they did through your actions, your thoughts, and how you live.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, thank you. Do you consider yourself Pan-Africanists? And if so, yes, so let's just go there first.
The whole pan, the whole pot, the whole jug. Absolutely. Global African.
So what does Pan-Africanism refer to or mean to you? I mean, when you hear that term, what does that actually mean to you? How do you think of that?
Okay, so yes, we consider ourselves Pan-Africanists, and it's for us, well, for myself, I look at it as our acknowledgement and and awareness of our connection to Africa, and the fruits of Africa is African people. And so by virtue of that connection, we are all connected as Black people around the world. And it's also, really paying attention to what is going on the continent, and with our brothers and sisters throughout the globe, and then doing whatever we can to help the growth and development of Africa and its people, and the continuation of the larger culture and practices and heritage that we come here and see, or that we even practice in different places around the world. Slightly different versions, but just the acknowledgement and bringing all of that together. So for me, that's how I look at being a Pan-Africanist and what that means.
Myself, I pretty much echo what she's saying, is to accept the set of experiences, the diversity, the grandeur, the strengths, the weaknesses of our people and our experiences, and to be a part of it. To accept it both in terms of space and on this globe, across the world. We're from Jamaica. We see that as a part of Africa. We're from the United States. We accept those experiences. And also being here on the continent, East Africa and West Africa, and accepting that diversity. And also in terms of time, accepting the ancient, the traditional, and the modern expression of what it is to be an African. So we definitely consider ourselves Pan-Africans, and actually blessed by the amount of diversity that's in this experience.
Is a Pan-African consciousness prevalent in Africa as you've traveled through it? Do people see themselves more from their country to country, or ethnic group to ethnic group? Do you find that, or do they see themselves in the larger scope of an African?
I'll try to take a stab at this. It's kind of nuanced. It's a lot of it is really based upon the fact that a lot of Africans recognize themselves from what they see on TV as a larger group of people. But you find that the education and the media systems that are prevalent in Africa, from the radio to the TV to our educational systems, don't tend to stitch together a sense of us being one set of people. So people tend to see themselves first as a start of, first as a member of their ethnic group, so their tribe, then as a member of their nation, and then they do know that there is one Africa, and there is a sense, especially amongst the youth, of wanting to, you know, be able to go different places in Africa and the African world. But it could be better, and it could be better by programs like this connecting us together and showing, you know, how really connected we are, how really similar we are. So for us, it's not an answer of if it is or if it isn't. There is a desire, especially within the youth, and there are different degrees, but it could be really amplified if allowed to travel.
And I'll jump in to say real quick, what I do see though is, especially with the youth, the younger generation, there is a sense of you know, certain things that are common across the continent, and you see that a lot with in this day and age with the music and sports. So you do see that, you know, they'll music, it just goes from east to west, north to south, and it's all embraced, and they know that is a part of them, just a different version of them. So you do find it showing up that way, and they do have, generally speaking, that connection with the African diaspora that they know about. So for instance, I will say Jamaica, when you say to someone anywhere that we've gone that we're from Jamaica, they automatically connect with Bob Marley or Usain Bolt and feel that even though Jamaica is not on the continent, that they're a part of us to some degree, yeah? And so you'll find them making that Pan-African connection. It's just not as embedded as it could be, should be. Yeah.
I see. So you both have a significant relationship with Africa and the African diaspora, having worked in and traveled in so many African countries. So if you can share with us which countries you've lived in and worked in, and what type of work projects were you involved in while you were there?
Come with up on a trip now, ears open.
So we'll try our best to give the abridged version because it spans a number of years. And so we started out with Jamaica. We started out 25 years ago, actually, having this, seeing what was really happening in America at that time where we were, and just realizing that, you know, we do have a homeland, and we wanted, the desire to come back home really got really strong 25 years ago. So our first trip was to Ghana. We came to Ghana with the children at the time, and just connected with the place, the people. It reminded us so much of Jamaica. So much of the nuances, the things that are there was very familiar to us. And so so that's the start. We were adopted into a family that 22 years ago, when our eldest daughter got married, our brother came to the wedding. So this is a family that was really a family for us and to us, and it survives till this day. And so that's where we made our connection. We came back to the US and have made several trips to Ghana, to Techiman, which is north of Kumasi. That's our hometown. And, you know, they've seen our children grow. We've seen their kids grow up. And so we started to do several projects there. There was, our family had a cassava farm, and our sister decided to really expand it and to help the women farmers in that area. So we decided to support that. And it was around the time when the government of Ghana was actually trying to promote women in farming. And so they had a program where you could actually, if you're a female in farming, they would support you with funds and access. And so I definitely saw that as a great opportunity to then really make an impact on the community. And so we started on that journey. Now, fast forward to when our second daughter was around 14, we went back to Ghana for her puberty rites. And we were received on a different level with the community because they were really impressed that even though we spent most of our lives in the West, we were still practicing the culture and the things that we learned, and saw it important enough to bring our daughter back to do this cultural practice. And so it was at that time that it really kicked up a notch. We decided that we were going to start our tech business there. We saw a lot of opportunity. And so parallel to that, we were also supporting the cassava farm. Now, we had to, the infrastructure wasn't ready enough for the tech. So we went back to the US, but we continued supporting the cassava farm, which we helped to expand the facility, modernize the facility, and it was something that was actually rated by the Ministry of Agriculture and used as a sample. What's the other word? As an example for other gari farming, cassava processing farms, to raise the standard of how they actually do the flour from the cassava. And so that continued over the years. And until I think about 6 years ago, we have been talking about sustainability and using the cassava peel to make biofuel. And the time came when there was another opportunity with the ministry for them to do that. And so we went over them how it could be done and contributed to the proposal. So the ministry accepted it. They got funding from IFAD, and they found a partner in India that actually was doing something similar. And they came to the village and installed the biofuel facility, chambers, and all this thing, and generating. And so now what's happening, just last year, they actually went into production where all of the peel from the cassava is now funneled into this facility, and it's generating enough electricity to provide the town village with electricity for the entire neighborhood. And having to expand the factory, they are now even taking in much more farm products from cassava from other farmers, from even neighboring villages and things. So it has contributed exponentially to the development of that area.
I got a quick question. Is it only cassava that it can be done with?
I'm sure it can. Yeah, there are other things. Yeah, my husband's saying any type of vegetable matter, but because they were in cassava farming and that's what we could access, that's what we went with.
See, right now we can see you. The signal is perfect. Look at these beautiful people. Yes. There's been clarity. Now, while you were speaking, one of the first things that ran through my mind, one of them something that they did in part of Coronation Market. Or nearby to every major market in Jamaica.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I'll just inject this. They have now different ways to actually create biofuel on different levels, because we just found out 2 years ago in Kenya, there's special bags and a little motor. I won't go too much into that because I'm not hands-on familiar with that, but there are ways now that we saw a little program that a couple was able to just take from a small farm to take the waste, vegetable waste from that farm, put it in this contraption, and generate enough fuel to power their home, a small house. So there are ways that we could use all of that waste where that comes from all of these markets to then generate power. Yeah.
Okay, so that was Ghana.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was Ghana.
Yeah.
So once the children got into university, we thought, okay, we can now restart the repatriation process. And we did that. On the way to Ghana to pick back up where we left off, my husband and partner here stopped in Ethiopia and was really impressed by the young people and their hunger for learning, especially in technology. And so I visited with him that first trip and fell in love with the history and the culture of Ethiopia, and saw what he saw in the young people. All of the cafes were filled with young people trying every means to get knowledge in technology. So we decided to redirect our landing spot, and we went to Ethiopia, initially set up our company there, and we were still outsourcing projects from the US, but we worked with the Ministry of Education. They had a program where you can actually mentor intern students from the university that's in your industry. And so we went on that program and we took some interns in, taught them, as much as we could about technology, and gave them the experience and the exposure, and really, really left an impact, I think. And that time we also, while we were there, we were able to host the 6th region SRDC conference on trade, and just opened up. We did the similar thing in Ghana. We participated in the conference in Ghana too a few years before that. And then we replicated it in Ethiopia. So we were always still trying to get diaspora involved and be aware of the opportunities on the continent and ways that they can come and participate. And then, so we were in Ethiopia for almost 4 years. And on a trip to Kenya, we actually saw that the infrastructure that supported technology was much more vibrant, stronger. Kenya was en route to creating a silicon savannah. And they were a bit ahead of the other 2 places that we were in terms of their adoption and acceptance of technology. So we decided to move to Kenya. So we moved the operation, and we've now been in Kenya for going on 6 years with our company. So it's still technology. We're still outsourcing. So projects from the US or wherever, we'll do it in Kenya. We employ consultants locally. We do everything we can to make sure that we have local young people that we're working with. And we have been focusing mostly on technology, but I've also, our CSR, we've participated in contributing to the art scene. We have, and we've also, there's a couple of programs where we're trying to get, different organizations are coming together and trying to get technology into the public schools, because there's still a lot behind in terms of really giving the children access. And so we are participating in a couple of community projects doing that, and in the local women's prison. Yes.
Here it's called what? Art After 5 in the Karen Public School.
Yes.
We gotta make sure they know how to get there.
Yes. It's real easy. It's meritatech.com. And they can contact us through the site, email, telephone. But those are the things that we are currently involved in, and working with both doing our business in terms of technology, and then just supporting whatever effort we can support in the community. Now, I'll do a plug.
Yes, plug.
We recently,
but I want to hear a plug. But I really want to, and I also want you to tell us exactly what your company does, so you can get that too.
You want to go?
So our company's a software.
Yes.
Our company is a software company. So mostly what we do is we create software for other companies. They give us what they want to create, and we create it for them. So we've created software for telecommunications companies, for businesses like banks and things like that. Manufacturing companies. We also have created some of our own software.
And I do want to hear the plug, but let me ask you this question. Let's say, for instance, we do this Remembrance program, and let's say we wanted an app for Remembrance. What would you suggest that would kind of, as we're doing this internationally, globally, a remembrance that we want to create a holiday. We want this second Saturday of June to be a remembrance day that all of us around the world honor our ancestors. What would you suggest if we came to you and said we want to develop an app that, something that we can use ongoing, but what kind of thing would you, suggest? Or would that even be feasible? Is that even something that's feasible? I mean, we can just do a site, would an app be a feasible thing?
I think the good thing with us is that we're not just technology people, but we're entrepreneurs and we're visionaries ourselves. So when we hear an idea like this, we usually like to sit with you. We usually like to help you to scope out the idea. We add our experiences. We add our ideas to what you want. And there's no bad idea, right? So in something like this, we would, recommend that you use all the various different means of communicating with people, from chat platforms to Twitter to the variety of different social media platforms, and that you get people's attention to come through an app or through a website and something like that. So we would kind of help you see the entire idea in it as a technical and also a business venture. And we would help you to understand what is the most effective way of doing it, given your budget and your time and how much you want to commit to it. But it is a really great idea. I think it's something that is very timely.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. How I would see, if you were to say that to me, I would look at a couple of ways. So it could be an app where once it's downloaded on your phone, you could actually use that app to push information and messages. And let's say today in our history, African history, this happened. So you could do that to engage. You could also do something that either as a separate app or a spin-off, or some part of it where young people could then have games, or engage in some kind of gaming application where you're playing. I don't want to use like Mansa Musa going around Africa.
Yeah,
some kind
of go port to port.
Exactly, trivia type thing, right? So anything that would engage you.
Want to see we can go through the Middle Passage Remembrance, but we're going to look at each of those spots along the way and literally connect the dots. And
something like that.
Some way through it. Okay, if you want to do music, that's your route. You want to do food, that's your route. You want to do, and just, don't get me excited. See.
No, we want all the excitement. We have to talk.
What we didn't talk about is the ventral veins, carpal tunnel, and cubital tunnel. That's why you see I took a long time over that laptop and cell phone repair section, because I jacked up my hands between hardware and application. But I love technology.
Nice.
And making sure that young people have access to it. We've gone
Yeah.
into Jamaica with no need for clothes. The clothes were in the backpacks. The weight was equipment. We used to do forge ahead, utilizing technology and culture to make a difference today. And the focus of it, I was a grants clerk at the time. They wanted me to teach people how to type. I said, you have a problem. This is the mid-90s and Windows was kicking. And because I also knew how to read that form, I said, what's your miscellaneous line items look like? Because if we went and bought computers outright, they'd go back to the grant source. But because we bought parts and taught people how to build and had them install a network into a library that reduced demolition, we changed the game for the Hartford Public Library system. They said our IT went from 1.5 people to 20.
Wow.
When I left them there, because I had to make sure Hartford has 26 towns surrounding it, but that was the only free computer class. And no matter what you came to do, you had to learn what was in the box to be. You had to know that first. I don't care what else you want to do, you're going in the box. So that when you go in the store, you're not going to get fooled. And that's my love for creating text. I don't have A+. I don't have Cisco. I don't have COBOL. Do my people have it? Yes, they do. From early ages, we got a hold of them in high school. We turned around janitors to come and take. People are hungry for the knowledge enough. They leave their jobs at 7, 8, 9 o'clock and will stay with you till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning just to learn how to be that self-sufficient. That's what I meant when I saw that repair, please. Because we can't just be consumers. And as much as folks are becoming coders, you gotta know how to fix it when it that funky.
Yes.
Okay, so my plug is actually we have been working on and off on an application for. It started out as monitoring vehicle traffic, and we kicked it up a notch when we went to Nairobi to address a lot of the road accidents that we saw. That was really many of them didn't have to happen, you know. And so we have, and then it actually we moved it to addressing general emergencies. And so many people know across the continent, in general, I would say, there is no 911 type service where you can actually call one number, you know, whether you have credits on your phone or not, and get an emergency responder. And so we decided to move that instead of just towards traffic, but to include general emergencies. And so what we've created is an application that you can actually download on your phone. And once we have responders sign up, if you're in an accident, you press that icon and you're connected with, let's say, the police or the traffic police. If there's a, you know, your house is being broken into, you would connect to the local police station. If there's a fire, it will be the local fire station. The current system that exists now is you have to have the number, the phone number for the police department, the number officer, the number for a fireman at the fire station to call and to do all, you know. And so we realized that this is a better way of actually reporting and managing emergencies. And so recently, since February, with all of this virus pandemic that's going on, we've seen a lot of calls for applications that were specific to handling this pandemic. And so what we've done is just created a few adjustments, let me just say, in that existing emergency application that targets some aspects of this pandemic. So how someone on their phone, how the Ministry of Health could then push information about what's going on to anybody that has the app on their phone. How if you are sick, you could actually reach the medical department and they could get your vitals. You know, do you have a fever? are you having breathing difficulty, and then instruct you as at what point you need to come to the hospital, and when you're released to monitor you after. So that's something that we're putting the finishing touches on. But I just wanted to plug that to actually show how we are creating something to address the concerns that we have.
Is this ice key? That's the name. What's the name of it? Because I'm creeping all up in here, so I don't want them to leave without a visual. Because
yes, ma'am. There you go. It's in cases of emergency. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So as soon as we have released the beta version, we'll update the Facebook page. But we wanted to do that first. But it's something that we have been working on and have, I would say, navigated or decided to include some features that could help many of the countries to deal with their cases, manage their cases better.
Okay, that's very interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you were accepted in Kenya, coming from the diaspora, coming from the Western diaspora, and being a business owner, and I also want to get a little information about how many diasporans that actually live in Kenya, and where they primarily from. Are they from the Caribbean or African Americans, or just
Caribbean?
Yeah. Okay. So
okay.
In terms of being accepted, I don't. So we came to Kenya about 6 years ago, just on a quick trip. There was no real adjustment. Yeah, there was no real adjustment. People speak English quite well.
Okay.
They're quite savvy. They're actually Western leaning, and in terms of adjustment, like people saying, "Well, you're Jamaican," and therefore we treat you different. We didn't see anything like that. As a matter of fact, we were treated quite well, generally speaking. So we didn't really get a sense that we were being accepted. People just saw us as other Africans.
When you go in with heart and spirit are seen.
Yep, I say. Yeah.
So that wasn't our experiences. We've been to maybe 14 African countries, and just generally speaking, people see you and they've treated us quite well. There's always the bad apple everywhere, but generally speaking, they don't see us so much as outsiders. Ethiopia has a little bit of Ethiopians are Ethiopian. Even though they accepted us, they do see us as outsiders, because phenotypically we're different.
Right, and language.
And they're very strong about their culture, but we were still accepted in Ethiopia, as an example. So we're here in Tanzania, it's the same thing. It's not like people single us out. As a matter of fact, most people have to
expect us to speak Swahili.
Yeah, they have to take a second look when we tell them we're not from here. Like, yeah, right, you're not from here.
Yeah.
So, the other question was how many?
Yes. Are there many diasporans in Kenya or East Africa? And where are they primarily from, and what are they doing?
Okay, I would say, for me, not as much as I would want to see.
Right.
I really think that we're, especially African Americans, they're not as represented as they could be. When we were in Ethiopia, it was rare that we were just, So it was rare that we would be walking down the street and you would see somebody who said, okay, that's African American. I saw a lot more from the Caribbean. So, and even in Kenya, it's the same thing. I think cumulatively, if you look at all of the Caribbean, it would equal or come close to the amount of African Americans that I see. So there'll be a lot from Trinidad, from Jamaica, from Antigua, especially because we actually have a Caribbean group in Kenya, and many of them are from different islands, Bahamas, Barbados,
Okay.
And I think you'll find more of that than African Americans, and even people from Europe. You will find a lot more of that country's diaspora. So a Kenyan born in the U.S., grew up in the U.S., or a Kenyan, born in the U.K., grew up there and then came and has come back home. So you'll find those. They're here. They're mostly in NGOs still. When you do find African Americans, some may have gone to school and then went back, or those that have come. It's a lot of type things, or government affiliated type organizations. You do have smaller percentages in technology, in education, in the medical field. A low amount, I would think. I would say, my opinion. Yeah. So representation is definitely needed from the African American community more.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. Is the lifestyle in Kenya or in East Africa, in the city and in the village, is it drastically different? No.
I would say no, because and then again, it's certain things. So for instance, we have lived in the cities, all 3 countries in East Africa, and even when we went to Ghana. But we've also gone to the rural areas, to the villages. And the main difference, I would say, that you see villages are the homes. So of course there'd be smaller, probably no commercial center in a lot of the villages then. And you'll have a center of town that's a small center, and then you'll see it in the homes. So it would be smaller and more remote, older type homes. But that would be the extent, because you're on a Maasai you're going to the village, and people in their individual homes might not have a TV, but there's a couple of shops or bars that have a TV, and everybody's there watching the latest football game from the US and knows who is Chelsea best player, something. So you're not far removed. That's how I would look at it.
Now, before I let you out of that part, because we're up to Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania. That was 4.
Yes.
I'm not leaving without hearing at least the names of the others. I don't have to get the full drop experiences, but because a lot of people, they keep thinking totally west, and you're beautifully east. But I do have one question. Have you been to Eswatini?
No, not yet. Not yet. We've actually taken a lot of opportunity when we want to take a vacation to go to another country. So the 4 that we've mentioned is where we've lived. Gotcha. Yeah. But the others we've visited, I would say, for 4 days or more. One of our favorites is Rwanda. Kigali. We love Rwanda. It is, as you've seen or read about it, clean, safe, chill, just really nice. And we've been there, 3 times? Yeah, at least. We've been to Uganda, also nice. And food, really good, really Caribbean type food. Avocados as big as my head.
Yes,
and I have a big black fruit litters the streets, banana, plantain, that's Uganda. We've been to Zambia, Mosi Oatunya, the best town. It's just nice. It's small. People are nice. Yeah, It's the falls, but we usually say the original names of these places. Yeah, so where else? We've been to Togo in the west, Benin. Well, he's been to Benin. I haven't gotten Benin yet, but Ivory Coast. We've also been to Burkina Faso. It's nice, hot, and but nice. Where else? Oh, and Liberia.
Well,
Liberia.
now that you've mentioned Liberia, of course, I'm going to need for you, Sister Abena, to tell us a little bit about your interesting family history background with Liberia, if you care to share some of that. I find that fascinating.
Yes, I'm tickled by it myself, so I don't mind. My grandmother, so my father's mom, her sister got married to this gentleman who is the son of Alfred Burroughs. Alfred Burroughs was Marcus Garvey's godfather. The same one, when you read Garvey's history, that's the person.
Yes,
that. Yes, and so meaning that there were Garveyites, right? And so when Liberia's, at the time, the president came to Jamaica, he was doing a rounds in the diaspora to call diasporans back to Liberia to help to build Liberia. And so he did a visit to Jamaica, and my grandmother's sister, her husband was just like, okay, count us in. And there was a group of them, because there were leagues of UNIA and groups that were really Pan-Africanist and wanted to repatriate. And so he was on one of the trips back to Liberia. He got there, and a group of them, they all roomed together, and they all had their skills and strength that they lent to the government. He was working, and within 2 years of working, he was able to bring his wife, my grandmother's sister, and their 2 children to Liberia. And so they eventually started the first coffee brewing company in Liberia, and probably the best in all of West Africa, I should say. And got to the point where it expanded. The government gave them more land. They expanded it and was exporting processed coffee beans. Unfortunately, he passed away in the 60s, early, based on a accident that he had. And so the family stayed, though. They had actually 3 more children. Were born in Liberia. And so they were there. They all went to school, and started contributing to different industries in Liberia. Then the war broke out, so they left and came to the U.S. Now, years later, one of their sons, the one that was born in Liberia, was a professor at Penn State and a lover of history, a lover of Liberian history, and has spent years researching Liberian history. And he's written about 3 or 4 books on different parts of the history of Liberia. His last book, he was actually invited by the Ministry of Education there to come back and to teach in one of the universities. And so
who is this
Patrick Burroughs.
Okay.
Patrick Burroughs.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, got him. And so when we he told us that there was a conference on trade that was going on 2 years ago. We jumped on it, and so we went, met him there, and it was just wonderful. It was a wonderful visit.
I think I remember seeing you post somewhere that the food was delicious.
Yes. Oh yeah, it was some of the best food ever. Yeah, and stuff that we, as coming from Jamaica, you know, spicy, savory food. It was just right up the alley. And the people are so nice.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So your family still has a homestead there. I mean, did the war? You even though there were land issues, your family still has. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. The family home is still there. And even while they were gone, people in the village actually was taking care of the property and the house in their absence, not knowing even when they were going to come back. So it's still there. Yeah.
Okay, good. So do you find now, you know, I did something that I see, but do you find classism very prevalent in your travels in Africa, or what are your thoughts about that? You know, we deal with racism here in the West, but there's the issue of classism. Is that a problem, or is that something that it's overblown? Do you think?
I would say classism, I guess, is here. It doesn't seem to be as entrenched, you know, in terms of like you're born into a class and so you'll die in that class. Classism, I guess, if it is.
So Kwabena was saying that you weren't born into it. Yes. It's not. Yeah, that's the last thing we really heard.
Yeah, you could be born poor, but it's not entrenched, you know, where regardless of how you're born, if you have money, you can't get out of that class. So I think classism in our experiences in Africa is more expressed in terms of wealth, and to the degree that it's expressed, it's kind of different than in the U.S. Because it's in the U.S. it you know, you have classism that you can inherit. You know, you can die as the class that you were born in. But here in Africa, I don't think it is the forefront issue. You know, it's not as big as an issue. Really, the biggest issue here in Africa is economics.
And I would say that if you are, let's say, from, you know, you have old wealth and you have new wealth. So you can have, let's say, for instance, when we're in Ethiopia, this Ethiopian young, I would consider her young sister, designed and got support to create a shoe brand, and it just took off. And so she's now, you know, migrated to the wealthy class, you know, and when you're in settings, you know, nobody looks at, oh, she's new wealth or old wealth, and so treat her a certain way. In Kenya, it's the same, I would say very similar. You have, we've come across people who, since we've been there, who've actually created an application that was bought by some huge technology company and was from the village and now has this money, you know? So it's you're not locked into or stereotyped because of a certain class. You do have a separation between the wealthy and the poor, in terms of areas, in terms of access to certain things. But I've actually gone to, let's say, upscale restaurants, and we've seen people that just based on how they're dressed and other things, you can tell that they might not be from this neighborhood, but they can come to the restaurant, buy whatever, sit as long as they want. They're not treated anyway, you know? Not like in the States where if you go into certain stores and you don't look the part, you're followed through the store. Right. You know,
you said something really interesting to me about a young person in the village developing an app. Now, what gets me is young person in the village developing an app that gets sold and raises the economic level of himself and his family. How come we don't get what is the disparity that is not happening in the tech environment or in the schooling system here in the United States, where 1 out of 1,000 kids in the hood is creating an app that can be sold?
In the United States, I've been working in tech now for over 30 years. I could count on my 2 hands how many African American male I have seen in the software development industry in 30 years. There is a lack of promotion of African Americans in the tech field. There's probably more programmers that you'll run into in like the Virgin Islands that are black than those that I've come across personally in the United States. So of course you don't want to put in the hands of the people that you're trying to oppress technology, and so that's been my experiences. So here in Africa, where you don't necessarily have that dynamic, I think we're suppressed with a low level of educational system, but not suppressed with, it's not as controlled as maybe the United States might be. You have people that are exploring, you have people that are applying themselves, you have people that are pushed by their communities and their families to do something. And so we're seeing a growth in the industry. We're seeing all types of people get on board and create things and do things. Whereas in the United States, I think there's just this concerted effort to suppress African Americans in the United States, particularly the black male.
That's why I made it a point. My daughter's now 30, but her friends and everybody still had diapers, but she always had her own computer with an extra 2 or 3 computers nearby so everybody could play. In her daycare, there were 20 some odd kids, but they each had a PC to play with. When she went to first grade, okay, I didn't pay tuition, but every student in those classrooms had a computer. And that access to technology, unfortunately, doesn't follow through around. We're looking at what the educational disparity is shown with the tech disparity in the response to education at home and the COVID-19 response here. And folks weren't looking at the fact that rural South Carolina has access to less technology than someplace in other corners of a third world country, because they've been making use of other means, at least to bring signal in. How can we, I did come across, and I remember when we were bringing equipment down, I remember telling folks, because they must say, well, how am I supposed to fill out them paper? I said, do me a favor. Before you even think about coming to America, get A+ certification. Get anything that tech skill is marketable to come in, even though now, you know what Knucklehead's doing, but they get to arm themselves. I couldn't always convince folks here, those who were of migrant parents, no problem. They were in my basement. And it was also my way of, there's certain folks who they no longer sling on street corners because they learned how to manipulate a computer and whatever else came with it. I had my own welfare to work system because I tried to give equipment to a school, but you said it couldn't go in the school unless it was bolted to a table, which was bolted to a floor, which is behind a door, a steel door with a Finch lock. And I'm like, you literally want to lock this equipment down for a whole calendar year? I said, no problem, because we were bringing them in by the truckload. I saved companies money because they have to pay to dispose of. I'm like, government wipe your software. Government wipe your hard drives, give me everything else. I'm teaching folks how to do this from ground up. Not just here's the machine, you got to install the software. You have to do every level of what it's going to take to actually make use of this tool. And even though it gets me because, like they're saying, there's wonderful ingenuity and Black folks are driving the force behind TikTok, even though we didn't create it. But life is not 30-second or 1-minute bits. And we were speaking to a professor yesterday who was speaking about the fact that it's hard to get them to even crack a book right now, because you're looking at not even toddlers. They're in diapers, still on a pacifier with a tablet, or knowing how to manipulate the phone. That's why I figured they're going to be fed so many sound bites. That's why I make all my videos real long, because one day they're going to sit down and immerse themselves. How do we change this? I make sure I show up in places, even though in my mind I haven't worked in tech in a long, even though I use tech every day, which is why I go to Charleston Women in Technology. For a long time, I was that only. It's like having a whole pot of rice with one black eyed pea in there. And for a long time, either that or I was the raisin in the oatmeal. But 7 years down the road now, it looks a lot different. But it's still hard to get people to embrace technology in the way that the rest of the diaspora is.
The question is how we see ourselves and our place in the world. And that is something that is provided to us by a system that doesn't like us, you know? And so it's media like this that begins to address that type of situation, who you are and what you are. So if you're an African American, from the day that you're born until the day that you die, if you follow everything that the system has given you, it's been literally slow dripping you on a poisonous sense of your own self. It's like putting you on drip, and that drip contains poison in it, and that poison is a psycho-spiritual poison against who you are and what you are. And so you got to rip the saline out of your veins, and you got to open your own eyes, and you got to see the world for itself, and you got to see, when it comes to technology, yourself, your own divine self, as the greatest expression of technology around you. But you won't see that unless somebody brings it to you, and that's why programs like this and the energy that you are putting into what you're doing is helping to wake each other up and disconnect each other from this system that is designed to suck our blood, really. Right. So I think it's a long road in Black America, in the diaspora, and that is why the diaspora needs to connect with Africa. And consequently, it's also why Africa needs to connect with the diaspora, because the sharp minds, the sense of quality, the sense of doing things on a grand level are in the West. You know, they're in the West, they're in the Western world, and yet the material, what is needed, the power is here in Africa, and we need to put these together and have a great vision. So I would say that if you're what advice I would have to, let's say, parents is, number one, understand, we started off talking about ancestral issues, that every child comes to you as a gift from the ancestral world to address issues. Try to arm this child with a positive sense of themselves, who they are, help them to find their destiny, support them in that regard. Let them know that they're building on top of something that started a long time ago, and it's greater than slavery, it's greater than anything that we've ever experienced. It goes way beyond anything that we've ever experienced. So what we're doing is we're breaking the child out of the psychological prison that the media provides to us. You know, if I was to show you outside and how beautiful it is, it's not a picture you're ever going to see CNN bring to you, right? They're going to, if they talk about Africa, they're going to go to the ugliest place that they can find, and they're going to keep your mind trapped into believing that Africa only looks like one thing. And so it is these efforts where we're changing the view of ourselves, changing the view of our world, that allows people to see opportunity, allows people to see another place that they might like to be, something that they might want to, you know, desire for themselves. These are very important things. As a computer programmer, I realized, you know, there's a rule in computer programming that garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. So if you put garbage in a computer, chances are you're going to get garbage out. Human beings are pretty similar. That's how outside looks.
Wow. Yes.
That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
No wonder you can't reach back a yard yet.
Can't reach back. No. Yeah. So garbage in, garbage out. So consequently, if you provide people with a positive view of themselves, you get positive results. So that's what we need to do. We need to give African Americans a sense that they represent one of the largest, most powerful potential forces in this world. You are in the house of the giant, you're in the house of the beast, and it is you that is giving that beast any kind of warmth in its skin, right? And you have the ability to shift the way that that beast acts in the world. Make sure that you understand that power and that you leverage it, right? Because whether or not the United States attacks some other country and rips it up to get its resources might somehow be influenced by the consciousness of African Americans and how active they are in the world, you know? And so I think we need to continue to struggle.
Yes, thank you so much for that. That's a wonderful message. If people are interested in connecting with you, first of all, is there a book in the works? Do you plan to put together some sort of book that has your story and your philosophy and everything? I'm really feeling that.
We want the visual experience.
Not yet.
All right, like put it this way. I did Around Jamaica. I'm working with Kevin. Kevin, we literally has a thing called Around Jamaica in 7 days. I went back to Jamaica for the first time in 21 years last spring. What happened was that led to a total of 3 trips and 7 months on the island within a 12-month period. The first 2 trips were 600 gigs apiece. The last trip was 2 terabytes. I literally said to somebody, because I added a GoPro. I literally said to somebody, here's the deal. I need an app where this is where I've been. Because folks are like, hold up. Where you find that place there? First trip, that involved Knoxford. The second trip was a combo of Knoxford and Costa. You said the last trip, up here, Costa and taxi. So I literally want to, because I call it, are you ready for Jamaica? So I want to see the app, but I kept asking them, is this feasible? And they're looking at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, listen, I don't have time for the overlay. I have all the content and all the links. I got the links to the videos and the links and the Google links to the unbelievable photo albums. Because I shot in high school and college. I don't do tiny. You want to be immersed? Here it is. So trust me, when I touch down where you are, we're going to do this. But effectively do stuff like that. Bam.
Yeah. Well, the
geotagged.
And the conversation we were having yesterday with Dr. Tiffany Pogue, we did talk about young people not sitting down, not taking the time to focus and read and absorb and do a certain kind of analysis because we are in that sort of visual kind of place, which is excellent. But we kind of have to bring them back into, reading and sitting and meditating and praying on it and doing analysis and taking a minute. And that includes getting into technology too, because that takes that kind of focus as well. So that's why I was asking about the book. Yes.
Okay, message received. I'll tell you this. It's something that we have talked, not as far as a book, but we have talked about actually doing videos, doing a collage of pictures, and doing some presentations, because even some of the things that we talked about in the past in terms of people not knowing what it's like on the ground. People are coming, want to come, and have no idea where to start or what should they expect, and those kinds of things. And one of the things that we've done in our lives is we love to travel, and so we've met many people in Kenya that when we tell them, oh, we went to such and such a place, they haven't left the country and they're 30-something years old and they've never been to that place. We have a car, and so on Saturdays, it's a thing for us to just jump in the car and pull up Google Maps and just go straight up on the road. Oh, let's turn left here. And we find out beautiful things. We run into beautiful people. So we have a lot of footage. So I think, yeah, we should do, we're going to do that, right?
Content is
Okay.
king, so my advice is
Okay.
Also remember that Go Gay Africa is looking for these brand ambassadors to even other parts.
Yes.
Yes. So, and we talked about that yesterday.
Yes, they told.
All
Yeah,
right?
they're looking for ambassadors with footage.
Because you've been these places. Listen.
So now that they don't have to do all of that kind of traveling themselves, and you get some credit, and it'll be sort of this joining, of entities and information.
Yeah.
So so that's why
Okay.
we got to get you and Go Gay Africa on a panel together to kind of.
I'm not gonna lie. I did send NECA an email, but I don't know what time it is there. I literally sat here and sent her an email, but I didn't see her pop in. And I was trying to catch Shelly. But
I think there's 4 hours. I think Nigeria is 4 hours from. Are they? No, 5.
Yeah. 2 hours.
No, 3 hours.
2 hours from here. I think Nigeria.
2?
Okay.
And you know what? And mind you, the more whatever it is, the more the day goes down for you, the clearer the signal is getting.
Yeah, I mean,
it's our night can,
evening is looking gorgeous behind you. I'm telling you.
It's like I've got. When's the last time you've been to? How long have you been steady on the continent?
10 years.
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, actually 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, good. Yeah. I think this September will be 11.
11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about, well, no, I'm cheating. I got a year less. That's just about how long as I've been in Charleston. But see, they have these fake palmetto trees. Them look like coconut trees, you see? Them look like coconut tree. And you really would think they'd have a coconut tree. So, but I guess
we have several
there.
We've got several in the property where we're staying.
Yeah.
I guess it's time to go to the motherland.
Yes, Brenda. Yes, Brenda, it is time. I'm telling you.
Have you heard of Zanzibar?
Yes.
Yes.
Just heard of.
Yeah, we gotta send you some pictures of Zanzibar. We were on the island of Zanzibar last week. That's heaven on earth, and they got breadfruit, they got all kind of food, spices, and so forth. So if people ever knew how beautiful Africa is,
see, that's what
it is so beautiful and so diverse that you could not experience all that there is that Africa has to experience in one trip. That's impossible.
Exactly. Well, well, it would take me a while because see, my thing is, if I'm traveling to other places for no less than 2 months, ain't no way I'm hitting the continent for anything less than 2 months. See, no, you ain't right. Have mercy.
Yeah, that's where I had lunch today.
And I did send NECA a message this morning telling her we were going to be doing a session with you, and that you had, and that she remembers you because you met in Ghana when we were all in Ghana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is your story. I go back to childhood days, all the way in Charleston, St. Catherine.
So if anyone is interested in connecting with you, how can you be reached? Just let's get some of that information.
I've been showing the website. The website, the Facebook page,
posted as well.
All that is there. No, but I right now I'm grasping on this migration measure. You left Jamaica and went to where at what? You went to America at what age? After high school? Pardon?
Okay, I went after college.
Okay.
So young adult.
Okay.
My husband.
I went to Canada at 7, and then I came back to Jamaica.
Okay, all right. No, I just
your family was in Canada. Your family moved to Canada.
Yes.
Kwabena, your family moved to. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted folks to be able to see the migratory jumps and how these leaps are made and what is acquired along the way to achieve Sankofa.
That's a powerful thing. When we were in our early 20s, we put it in our hearts that come what may, we're going to be on the continent.
Yeah.
And so every single thing that we did was a step towards being here. And now that we're this age, looking back and reflecting, we realize just how powerful that soul commitment was. Because I mean, it took giving away everything, you know, and it's worth it. It's been worth it for us. It's something that we can look and we can say to our own souls that we're happy that we took the path.
Yeah, definitely fulfilling. There are so many opportunities here for our personal growth. I'll jump in and say, I think my personal time while we were in Ethiopia, it was heightened spiritual growth for me. And I'll just make that real quick. Even ancestors, we follow a Kemetic calendar. Us personally follow a Kemetic calendar, and once every 10 days, there's a day set aside to pay homage to the ancestors. And so what we do is normally on that day, we'll either do it at breakfast time or dinner time, but we make food, and we always include something that, a bunch of things that our ancestors loved. So, his grandmother's favorite thing, or my grandmother's favorite thing, my father's favorite thing. And so we would, absolute, make sure we're clean, prepare the food, and any place that we're staying for more than a week, we create an altar. We have an altar at our home, but wherever we go. So for instance, we've been in Tanzania now for some time. So in the home we're staying, we found a space and created an altar there. So we would then just take the food, pour libation, call their names, tell them why we're calling their names and that we've made food, thank them for everything that they've taught us, or every way in which they've impacted our lives. We tell them any situation that's going on, and we set the food aside, the food down on the altar with water, and that's how we actually pay homage to our ancestors in our spiritual practice. But I will go back to what I was saying about Ethiopia, because of many of the practices of the Orthodox religion there, they have a day aside, 2 days every week where it's their worship day. 2 days they'll fast during the week, and so for us, it was very easy for us to blend in to our daily life, our connection and acknowledgement of our ancestors and the way we carry ourselves and things like that. So for me, that was a place where I grew spiritually stronger, in connection to nature and the energies around, and just how we just more dedication in living a better life, or being better people. So forward to Kenya again, Islam is and Tanzania is common, Christianity is common, and other practices are. So for us to really be in our skin, be in our rightful place, be comfortable with even how we live and how we pay homage to the Almighty and to what all of the other things that forms a part of our lives. It's been so much easier to be us here since we've been on the continent. And so we have grown and become our better selves being here, even with when we have to learn things. We came here humbly to learn, to understand, and to contribute. It's been a mutual mutually exchange. Right. And so it has just been fulfilling for our spirits to have come back home and to be home. Yeah.
There was one part of this, because there's going to be those that say, okay, money aside, oh, but what do I come equipped with? I don't have the degree. For the person who has not yet attained the Western standards of achievement in terms of walking with a degree, because they don't necessarily understand you're not necessarily coming to do a job, or you coming to start new ventures. It's obviously not for the sake of heart to make such adventure, but for those who have that calling, what areas are there that in its sectors of society in various parts of Africa would you say they needed those who may have skill sets other than just degrees, or even if they do have degrees, in what areas?
Come hungry with a thirst for opportunity.
Gotcha.
There's everything here. The continent has 1.3 billion people. The level of quality in a lot of things is not yet at the standard. So just coming across from the West, where you've seen things done at some of the highest qualities, and coming here and knowing how to do something even small a little bit better, you are already ahead of the game. So whatsoever it is that you have, whatsoever it is that is your passion, that's already something that you have, that you can bring, that you can find a place for it here. So if you were to ask specifically, if you're into real estate, there's a huge opportunities for real estate here. Millions of homes need to be built, and millions of things need to be done better. If you're even a mechanic, you know, if you're someone that fixes cars for a living, even the quality that you know of working on cars in the States can add to what is here already here. So I think the industries are wide open. The richest man sold Dangote, he started off selling rice. So bring whatsoever you have, be prepared to look for opportunity, be prepared to compete, be prepared to compete. And everything that you will need to compete here, you already have to implement that where you are. So if you are successful competing there, you'll be successful competing here. So learn it from where you are and then bring it here. But there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of growth that could be done. There's one of the hotels that we stayed at. It's an indigenous Tanzanian gentleman. He built that hotel from cutting trees. You know, that used to be his job, to cut trees. Eventually, he was able to buy land and build a hotel, and now he's a millionaire.
Yeah.
Those stories are just one after the other here. This is a land of opportunity. And what we have from our experiences in the United States is highly valuable here on a person-to-person basis, on a corporate basis, and so forth. But you will struggle, and you will have to compete, and you will have to bring your A game, you know, because there's other folks here that are bringing their A game. And, you know, a beachfront property, you know, it's owned by, you know, so they bringing it. Right. And we need to bring it. We need to see it as competing and bringing the best quality that we can to this continent, and actually supplementing what is here with our brothers and sisters to raise the quality of Africa.
Right.
So if you have the opportunity to come, you scope it out, you choose your strategy, you choose your market, you do your research, you connect with folks, everything that you would do if you were going to China. You do that here.
Right.
And I would
you've got to do those series of videos, because we're not getting this. We're not getting this straight talk that you're talking here. And I'm 55, so if I lay this on somebody who's 25, who's 35, who's, okay, I got my degree. Because you have a whole slew right now, they've got a degree, but this part, where everything is shut down, but they're still trying to figure out, how am I marketing this sucker? How am I making it use of? And you two are a blessing. I thank you. You what they call them threats.
Yes. Yes. Well, fortunately, we'll be marketing this
to Motherland to backside with just a sight for John Brown country. Yes.
Fortunately, we will be marketing that this will be seen throughout the global diaspora to people in Liberia. We have a large audience there, to people everywhere.
Yes.
So that's very, very good. So any parting thoughts? I know it's time to go. It's gotten dark there. So you've given us parting thoughts, but Abena, I think you were about to say something, and then we'll let you go. And you've done us a tremendous service. I love you and appreciate you for it.
Thank you. We love you too, and for this opportunity. So what I was going to say, though, just in terms of industries are open. So you do have some industries that you're going to go into that will require degrees, but it's not a must. You know, it's more, what can you do? And like Kwabena said, to really bring your A game. So the medical industry, nurses are still needed. There's a lot of doctors that are from the continent that are working in the U.S. after university, never came back. So you have in the medical industry the whole gamut. Okay, in education, teachers, even in technology. There's still, because again, what's happening is you do have innovators and creative young people here, but they're not given the training, the actual hands-on training that would set them above ones coming from outside. And you do have applications that are built applications that companies here are using that is built in other countries, especially Europe. So they'll have software running their plant, but it's from Europe. And no one locally is trained, generally speaking, not all the time, right? But you find that many situations that you don't have local software developers that are trained to then be the support for their application, you know? And so a lot of applications that are here is customized, not built from scratch. So that needs to change in terms of technology. And then in housing, in construction, in building construction equipment or large equipment for use in building roads or building houses and things like that. So mechanics, you know, there's a lot of opportunities here.
Right.
Most of all, I would say, others involved. Yourself, your people, your family, your for Africa. Bring that, and that's what's going to help you to get through the difficulties and the challenges that are here. That is the most important thing to pack in your backpack. Is that love? You know, and that'll help you through.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking at the host of ancestors that you just took with you. All of them people will come from them place there. And then they jump on the next set. And then what it took to get you to college. And then jump on the next set with professional training. And then all over them, your corners, the motherland. Yes! Jam down there everywhere. Everywhere you look, today. I needed to steal that. Because it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to see again Black love in action. So that's what's sustaining these motherland connections. Where they say they may have sailed them ships out, but them babies made it on home.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we did.
Woo!
Yeah. So we give thanks.
Talk soon.
We give thanks.
We'll talk soon. And
yes,
thank you both, and great to see you. Both again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you didn't see me, but you'll see me in Kenya. Okay.
Good. Yes. Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay. Please take care.
Oh, likewise.
Okay. Bye.